So the how is creating a set of questions on a range of social, environmental and ethical issues. There are 7 topic areas: community, environment, ethical choices, finance and governance, human rights, marketplace, ethics and workforce. And there's a total of 43 questions, currently 43 questions, over those 7 topic areas. We have worked with a great range of NGOs and campaign groups to create these questions. Here are some of them. We've worked with a really interesting organisation called SIDWatch that monitors the output from NGOs and campaigning groups and measures what the hot issues are. And it's fracking and it's tax justice at the top of the league table at the moment. And they produce very interesting data that helps us make decisions about which question to make available to answer next. But basically it's demand-led. What the NGOs want, what the public wants, those are the questions that we want businesses to answer. The other point to make is that these questions have been developed with hundreds of businesses that have been willing to draft answers to these questions and share those answers and help us improve the questions as a result. Over the course of the years in which we're developing this this platform and this idea, this concept, we have, as I said, had hundreds of businesses provide answers. What we've found is that they are describing policies and practices that are either extremely good or very poor or somewhere in the middle. And when we realized a couple of years ago that you could classify the policies and practices that the businesses describe in answering these various questions as exemplary, commendable, justifiable, or unacceptable, we realized that we could create a metric for the businesses that are willing to do this, and that's where Responsible 100 comes from. The 100 is the score out of 100 that we assign to businesses that are willing to publish their answers to these questions. What we have found is that many businesses are looking at these different issues. Here are 3 examples: living wage, lobbying and influencing government, customer complaints and redress. And they are self-assessing their performance. And it may be certain managers involved in this, or a corporate responsibility department, or a sustainability department, or officers, depending on the size and the nature of the business. Somebody is usually tasked, or a group of people are usually tasked with working out how the business is performing on different social, environmental, ethical issues. At some stage or other, other members of the organisation get involved in discussing how the managers think that the company is performing on these different measures. What we have found that we needed to do is be involved to some extent ourselves and to give a view as to what sort of answer, what sort of set of standard policy and practice that the business is describing in its answers to these questions. And we have provided a view, and we have worked with the businesses to understand how well they're performing, and we have taken their answers back to the NGOs and campaign groups that we work with to develop questions to say, what does this answer mean for this issue? For this question, is this question good enough? Can this question be improved? This is what this company is saying, and this is what the next company is saying, and it's taken many years to work out how best to use this platform and what its best purpose is. A year or so ago, when we started getting the biggest businesses involved, I mentioned Legal & General, there are 4 other very big businesses involved at the moment. Having started a conversation with these businesses about this idea and how they can be involved, we have realized that it's been necessary to have meetings and bring in these big businesses and bring in the various people within those big businesses that are interested in transparency and accountability on these issues, and to share the draft answers with around the table, and to invite other companies to share their answers and to share their views and their comments on the answers that other businesses have provided. And we've brought the NGOs and the campaign groups into these conversations, the people that we've developed the questions with. And for the last year or so, we've had a number of roundtable discussions with 4 or 5, 6 big businesses, and with 3 or 4 different NGOs and campaign groups at any given time, any given meeting, to look at the questions, to look at the answers, to look at the scorecards that we're using to score the answers that are provided. And these discussions have been really interesting and instructive and useful, and helped us to develop Responsible 100. What it's helped us to do is develop these scorecards. So in seeing more and more answers to the questions, we get some sense of what would be unacceptable policy and practice, what is justifiable, what is commendable, what is exemplary. And these scorecards are developing all the time, as I'll show you shortly. And these scorecards, as well as the questions, as well as the answers that businesses provide, all this information is available for public scrutiny, comment, and feedback and rating, or soon will be when we've made Responsible 100. We upgraded the website for the new website in. So the work that we've done with these big businesses is something that we now want to push out and involve a wider group of NGOs, a wider group of stakeholders in the conversation. We'd like to take the answers that these businesses have provided and put it onto the platform and have anybody comment and rate and respond to the company to say what they think, how well they think the business is doing, what they're doing well, what they're not doing so well, where they're meeting people's expectations, where they're surpassing people's expectations, and also where they're falling below people's expectations. One of the big ideas behind Responsible 100 is get a wider group of stakeholders and comment makers involved as possible. The social, environmental and ethical issues that businesses are tackling that affect society at large affect us all. I mean, by definition, all these different issues that we're looking at, we want to work out what these businesses are doing and work out to what extent they are meeting people's expectation in their responses and the policies and practices that they've developed. So in the course of doing this work and getting more answers to the questions and more comments and ratings back from people that are looking at these answers, we're able to make more and more detailed scorecards. And this is what we were able to do ahead of a meeting that we had in December when we had NGOs and campaign groups from the tax campaigning world, and we had big businesses who are taxation is a particularly difficult issue for business, especially big businesses which have spent many years trying to minimize their tax bill. So that's tax. Tax is one of the 43 issues we look at. There are a number, as I've already described, of 43 that we have in total. Here are 24 example issues. What we do is provide companies these questions and enable them to, in the first instance, sort of indicate which ones are most important, most relevant to them. And often in the first instance, you'll find that a business says, actually, these issues here aren't relevant to our business for these reasons. And they go on to say, of those that remain, here are the ones that are really burning issues for us. And on these different issues, this is how we perform. Customer complaints and redress is a burning issue for us, and we do really well. Work-life balance is too, and our policies and practices are pretty good, but could have room to improvement. And for example, in health and safety, it's a really important issue, but we continue to fail to fix that particular problem for reasons that are beyond their control, or reasons that we're trying to explain to you. What we found that these questions do, and the scorecards that the questions have that support them, is this means for businesses to self-assess and to get some sense of where they perform. And businesses will do this, and our online tools enable them to do this, is to quickly map what they think are the important issues, and how well they believe that they are performing on these different issues. At that stage, we say, well, remember that we're getting lots and lots of different businesses to provide answers to these questions. We are testing their answers with a wider and wider group of stakeholders. We are finding that new issues are every time we get a company to answer the question, we find new examples of good policy and practice. The issues change all the time. They develop all the time. Expectations change. The standard of policy and practice changes. Technology changes. The media agenda changes. The heat in these issues waxes and wanes. And what a business is doing right now may well be quite different from what the business is doing in 3 months' time or 6 months' time. So what we're saying is we will constantly update the questions, and we'll constantly update the scorecards as we get more and more view of the different policy and practice across businesses. We get more and more answers from businesses, and we'll constantly put these scorecards into the public domain and ask people to tell us if we've got capturing all the different standards of policy and practice in the scorecards, and whether we have separated them into those 4 different standards in an appropriate way. What we're seeking to do with our web platform is to enable people to comment and rate using social media, using their mobile phones. They can see the look at the questions that are most interesting to them, whether it's tax or animal testing or diversity in the workplace or impact on the local community or CO2 reduction, whatever it is. They can see which companies are answering those questions. They can see which companies have the best answers, the best policy and practice, and which are commendable, justifiable, or even unacceptable. Businesses will publish answers where they can say we're unacceptable, our policy and practice is unacceptable on this issue, but we are committed to improving it. That's what we found businesses are prepared to do. What we're doing with Responsible 100 is seeking to build a web tool that's got as many people as possible able to come here to comment and rate, interact with the information, to tell the businesses what they like, what they don't like, and to help us get a better and better sense of the different standards of policy and practice out there. So with that additional insight, when a business maps itself and says this is how we think we're performing, these are the burning issues, this is how we think we're performing across these issues that are relevant to us, we're often in a position to say, actually, on tax transparency, you're not quite as good as you thought you were. On bribery and corruption, that is a relevant issue, that is a material issue to your business, and you're not performing particularly well. Living wage, you are performing better than you thought you were. The burning issue, customer complaints and redress, you're not quite as good as you thought you were. Whistleblowing is a burning issue for you, and actually you're doing better than you thought you were, etc. We can provide any business a better understanding of the issues that are relevant, a better understanding of the burning issues, and a better understanding of how they are performing. So we're excited about the knowledge that we're building and the ability to use that or help any business use that to understand how they're performing on these different issues, how they compare with their peers, what better policy and practice looks like, and how and when to adopt that better policy and practice for themselves. So that is an example of where a business may be mapped using the Responsible 100 data, and that was a comparison with where it was when it mapped itself and assessed itself. This one here, which indicates how the Responsible 100 score is calculated. We are awarding 100 for exemplary, 70 for commendable, 40 for justifiable, 10 for unacceptable, and the cumulative score there, divided by the number of questions answered, is the average score or the Responsible 100 score.